Good morning and welcome to today's webinar on using PBworks in your business. This is Chris Ye over here at PBworks. I'm glad to have you here with me today. What is on the agenda? What we're going to do is I'm going to take about 25 to 30 minutes to demonstrate the PBworks product. I'll go over a lot of the basic functionality. I'll talk about use cases, and I'll make sure that at the end of those 30 minutes you have a good solid understanding of some of the things that you can do with PBworks. As we go along, and as I show various things off, you should feel free to use the questions and answer interface to ask your various questions. The goal basically is to collect your questions along the way, and after I'm done with the presentation of the product itself, I will open it up to Q&A, and I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. Feel free to make them as specific or general as you like. In general, I try to complete this webinar by 45 minutes past the hour. That's so that you have plenty of time to prepare for your next meeting, because oftentimes meetings are scheduled on the hours. It's one of those little human quirks. But if you guys have a ton of questions, I'll stay up until the top of the hour to answer those questions and make sure you hear everything you need to hear. I'll also talk about what next steps you should follow if you decide, hey, this PBworks stuff is for me. How can I make it work in my organization? All right. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get to the product demonstration. So PBworks is a collaboration software platform. And what that means is it is a way for you and the various members of your organization, as well as partners and suppliers and contractors that you work with outside the organization, to have a single place to go to share information, manage tasks, and overall store all the stuff that has to do with your work. Now, today I'm going to be demonstrating PBworks using our Sterling Cooper Draper Price demo account. Sterling Cooper Draper Price is an advertising agency. If it sounds familiar, it may be that you're a fan of the television show Mad Men, featuring the very handsome John Hamm, whom I'll be portraying today. Just picture the very handsome John Hamm in your head, and that's exactly how I look like. So, while you probably are not an advertising agency, the vast majority of the world is not, what's interesting is that advertising agencies are a pretty good proxy for the kind of work most of us perform today. It's very knowledge intensive. You're not working on an assembly line putting together widgets. You're probably working at a desk dealing with Word documents and Excel spreadsheets and email and making sure that you stay on top of whatever it is you're trying to do. And increasingly, what you're trying to do is very project oriented. Like an advertising agency, which has customer projects or client projects, most of us are working on individual projects, whether they're for internal customers or external customers. And so we need to reflect that reality in that we need a way to keep track of all the stuff we're working on for all our different masters. Finally, one of the things about an advertising agency is that it is not just something where you have everyone that you work with in a single four-walled building. Increasingly, we have companies which are global, or at least spread across the country with multiple offices. We have freelancers and contractors, suppliers, customers. All these people tend to be located outside of reach. You can't just walk over to their desk and talk to them. And so we need a way to take those interactions, move them into the online world, and also make them persistent so that everyone on the team can understand what's been going on and what's been decided. So all those things together make up PBworks. And this demonstration will show you how Don Draper is using PBworks to do a couple of different things. It'll show you how Don Draper is using PBworks to work with his customers and clients and his team in order to execute projects. It'll show you how he uses it for internal project management, as a knowledge base, and as an intranet. All these different use cases represent different uses of the same underlying technology, and it's the technology of collaboration. Ultimately, we feel like all of these things, working with customers, sharing information internally, managing projects, become more efficient, more effective when you take a collaborative approach. So let's start with working on a project, in this case, a client project. Now, Don Draper is looking to launch a new hotel for the Hilton Hotels Company in Kuala Lumpur. And this brand is going to be launching this hotel in June 20th, 2012. Now, in the old days, Don Draper in the 1960s would probably do this with a lot of interoffice mail, maybe some telegrams, maybe some telephone calls. In today's world, that's not really how it works anymore. Now, he might want to use email, email is super handy. Most of us use it all the time. But email has a host of problems. Yes, it's a very quick and convenient way that is already a central part of your day. But if you ask someone to do something via email, you have to remember to go back to them and make sure they actually respond. If you want to share something via email and you share a document or a file, who knows if it gets out of place, and who knows how many different versions are floating around out there. And if you have a group of people that you want to work with, if you have an email list, everyone's getting all those emails, and eventually, because most of those emails aren't relevant, they're barely even going to pay attention to them. So what we've done is we've built a system that gives Don Draper and his team a convenient way to work together, that brings together all the different stuff that's involved in getting this hotel launched, from the content and notes and files and images and videos and the like, to the workflow, the deliverables, the tasks, down to the individual members of the team and what they're responsible for. So let's take a quick look at this particular customer workspace. This customer workspace includes a couple of different types of collaboration. The first type is what we call wiki-style collaboration. So what you're looking at is a wiki page, and a wiki page is an editable web page which makes it easy for groups of people to collaborate together, much like the Wikipedia allows the entire internet to collaborate on putting together the world's greatest encyclopedia. In this case, the wiki technology is used for the project team to be able to very easily publish the information that is relevant to the project. So here you can see we've got Hilton and its logo, we've got some parameters around the project, who's responsible, what industry, what office, what account executive, and a series of text information like the overview, so a set of objectives, some links to key information, and then even an image of the hotel itself that we're going to be launching. Maybe it's an artist's impression. Now, what's nice about these wiki pages is that it's extremely easy to change them. This is not like a publishing tool where you have to learn a bunch of code in order to figure out how to do it. It's all what you see is what you get. So, for example, if we do this, we know that, gosh, we've missed the deadline of launching it for the spring vacation season. It's already May. So the primary goal is to launch the brand at the end of Q2 2012, take advantage of the summer vacation season. And a secondary goal is to raise awareness around business travelers, especially CFOs who are approving business travel. All right, so I've just made a set of changes, and I'm going to go ahead and describe them. Revised project overview to reflect shift to summer launch. And when I go ahead and I hit save, the changes are instantly made. Now anybody who comes in and is looking for information will see that our goal is the end of Q2 2012 and the summer vacation season. And what's nice about this system is it automatically updates. So you can see, oh gosh, why did Don make this change? Oh, he wanted to reflect the shift to summer launch. And if you want to see what happened, we have a complete history of what's occurred. So all the revisions that people have made, and if I want to, I can actually do a red line comparison between any two versions. Here I'm comparing the latest version with my last revision a week ago. And what it brings up is a red line version that shows we changed during Q1 to at the end of Q2. We changed spring to summer. And we changed for 2012, business travel for 2012 to just business travel. This kind of in-depth information makes it a lot easier for your team to work together. Now, instead of having an email that goes out to a list of 6 people that has a file attachment attached to it, you can create a wiki page with all the relevant information. And with the email, what you'd probably get is if you said, hey, give me some feedback, 3 of them are going to send you new versions of the Word document. Hopefully, they remembered to put on track changes, but quite possibly they didn't. And another 3 people are going to write back with information saying, hey, in the second paragraph, remove the word through and replace it with via. Neither of these things is particularly easy to deal with. And in fact, you, as the person who's coordinated everything, is likely to end up doing a lot of manual work to reconcile it. In contrast, when you've got a summary like this, all the people are seeing the most up-to-date version. They can see what changes other people have made. And if you decide, gosh, I didn't like the change that someone made, you can actually go back in time, look at the previous version, and say, well, I want to make this the current version. So you're actually able to travel backwards in time if somebody makes a mistake. And that's really, really important. Now, one of the customers that I've worked with is Deloitte Digital. It is the consultancy based in Australia, and they do a lot of work with their clients. And one of the challenges they faced at the end of a project was writing the final report, basically the final deliverable. And what they found is when they were doing it via a traditional Word document, there was a lot of back and forth, there was a lot of emails. The whole process would take about a week and just clog everyone's inboxes. So instead, they shifted to using PBworks and using wiki-style collaboration for writing these final reports. What they found is they were able to cut down the amount of time it took from 1 week to 1 day and cut the number of emails back and forth by 90%. Now that is a tremendous savings, especially if you're in a situation where that kind of effort is not billable because it's not actually moving the client's business forward. Now, there are a few other collaborative features about these wiki pages. As you notice, unlike things like the Wikipedia, we can actually embed things like the to-do items, like Don Draper needs to raise the brand preference in the market by 10 points. Gosh, I hope we're able to do that, otherwise Conrad's probably going to fire us. And Don also has the ability to tag the page to make it easier to find later on or to classify it. And Don can comment on the page. So you can actually collect feedback much like this were a blog post where people are commenting and replying to those comments. Every single element of our system is subject to security. So you notice that there is a thing here that says control access that actually allows us to decide who has access to it. For any given item within the system, you can actually see who has access to it, and we'll give you a full list of people that you can scroll through. And you can make various changes to the security as well. In fact, we'll see that in just a second as we take a look at the Files interface. So the Files interface is what we use to manage the individual documents and files that we work with. What happens is, while wiki-style collaboration is great, and wiki pages are really powerful for certain things, it is generally the case that you don't turn in a wiki page. You turn in an Excel spreadsheet or a PowerPoint document or a Word document or something along those lines. And so we offer a way for you to collaborate on those documents as well. So the Files interface basically is a different view of things. Instead of a wiki with links back and forth, it provides you with a set of folders and subfolders, much like you'd be familiar with from looking on your computer. And we can look at individual folders and subfolders, like this client dialog folder, for example, and dive into individual files. So a file like this Hilton proposal.pptx is a PowerPoint file. We can now easily share that file with other members of the organization. We can let them download the file if they want a local copy. But what's great is if you're just looking to read through the file, you don't even have to download it. We have a full online preview feature that lets you page through the actual presentation, which is some pretty powerful stuff. Just like with a wiki page, you can actually comment on it and tag it. Tagging becomes exceptionally important with images and videos, which are otherwise hard to index because they're not text-based. And in fact, as we noted, we have the same sort of control access ability as we saw at the wiki page level. And in fact, this one already has custom security set up such that Conrad Hilton, our client, has read-only access. Like, we don't want him changing our presentation, but we want him to be able to see it. And so we can do that, and we can, again, see a complete list of who has access and what level of access they have. And access levels range from read-only all the way up to full administrative privileges, which lets you do everything. Now, back to this particular file, the other thing you'll notice about the file is there's text within the page. It's a Hilton proposal.pptx, but let's say we were searching for something within that file. Let's say we were looking for something that talked about capabilities. So if I go ahead and I type in capabilities into the search box, I believe I spelled that correctly, yes, and I hit search, what this does is it actually searches through our system, and it will actually find stuff within the files itself. We actually index the full text of all the files you upload. So here in Hilton proposal.pptx, we can see that capabilities does appear, and we have a set of snippets that shows you that it appears. It also appears, by the way, in the comments. Gosh, look at that. In that case, that comment didn't pull up, so we'll have to take a look at that later on. The other thing to note about the search results are filtered. So if I go ahead and I remove the filter, right now it's filtered to just this workspace, but if I look across all my projects, would I expect to see more versions of this presentation? Absolutely. As you can see all these different versions, I can even say, well, gosh, it appears in 3 PDFs. Tell me about those PDFs. Oh, we have an annual report. We have an RFP response. All of these things allow you to filter in a variety of different ways. So this files system also incorporates some other interesting features. So we saw how there's folders and subfolders. If you're within a folder, you inherit the security settings of the folders. That's what those little shields indicate. But we also work with things like video files. So video is becoming increasingly important for many of us. You want to have a video file that you share with people. It can be a little tricky. These are pretty big files. And if you share it on something like a YouTube or even a Vimeo, it's very difficult to keep it private. You can't say, I only want this set of people to be able to see it. That's where we come in. We are really based around security, and that means that when you upload your video file into our system, we can make it so it's web playable. So we do what's called transcoding to make your WMV or MPEG-4 or AVI or QuickTime file visible to folks regardless what software they have. And what we also do is we transcode it into Flash and HTML5. These are the 2 different formats that people use for videos. And what's important is that we do both formats, because Apple devices like iPhones and iPads don't support Flash. They only support HTML5. So we have a video player that will play pretty much everywhere that YouTube will play, and it allows you to share videos in a secure fashion, being able to restrict it just to the people you want to see. And as you can see, we can tag it to make it easier to find, we can comment on it, and we can control the access levels so that we know exactly who has the ability to see it and who doesn't. So that's sort of the files interface, and certainly this is a pretty important thing. This is a way for people to work on and share the documents they're already sharing. Making it searchable is a big deal. Making it shareable is a big deal. But besides the content and some of the documents, there's a big piece that's involved with managing projects as well, which is, gosh, there's this workflow. There's people working on stuff. There's deliverables. How do I make sure it all happens? That's where our built-in project management comes in. So for any of these projects, we have a built-in project management module that allows you to set up tasks and milestones. Milestones are essentially task lists that allow you to make sure that all those tasks are done before the milestone is closed. So in this case, we have a set of milestones by phase: brainstorming, presenting the initial proposal, approving it, and so on and so forth. For each of these, there are a set of tasks, and the tasks tell you who does what by when. So the objective here is to enforce accountability. Who does what by when means that you are always certain of when something is supposed to be done, who's supposed to be doing it, what it is, and if something goes wrong, you know who to hold responsible. If we dive into something like this one, Don Draper asked team and client to add initial thoughts to the brainstorming page, you can see that we actually retain an entire history of everything that's happened with this particular task. Most of this is resetting the due date, because that's what I do when I do these demos. But there can be conversation back and forth. There can be links to a particular page, links to a particular file. The idea is to provide all the context you need around a particular to-do list item in one place, so that people don't have to hunt around or ask for help when they're trying to do something. All the information is right there. By the way, if you assign someone a task, when they update it, you'll get an update notice letting you know what's happened. So people can provide status reports almost automatically as they're going through, adding links, making changes, adding notes. Status reports are going to the task assigner as we speak. Similarly, when you get assigned a task, if somebody makes a change to it, you'll also get notifications letting you know as changes are being made. Now, the way that this ultimately works is that you're able to look at these tasks in a variety of different ways. The default view is to view it by milestones. You can sort of split things up logically, but you may also want to look at things chronologically, so you can see on a due date perspective everything that's due for this project at a glance. So we've got a couple things that are due today. and more things this week, and then most of the stuff, 17 of those tasks, are in June. And you can view it on a calendar basis. So here's what the rest of May looks like. And I can move forward and say, gosh, looks like we're going to have a relatively busy June, especially each week we got a day which has got a lot of stuff due. And this stuff can be filtered. So if I say, well, gosh, I only care about what I, Don Draper, have to do, that cuts down the work considerably. And you can look and filter on all those different parameters as you're looking at the task. Now, the final piece of the puzzle is the people. And you have a roster of the folks who are involved here. Because I'm an administrator, I can choose what level of access they have. You'll notice somebody like Conrad Hilton, who is my client, I can actually say, hey, what can this user see? And it gives me a complete list of all the files and pages that he has access to. This is really important, especially if I want to make sure he doesn't have access to internal materials. So it's a great check. But it's also the case that if I look at somebody like Walter Landor from a partner agency, he's set up very differently. He's set up as a page level only user. And what that means is that he only has access to things I explicitly designate him having access to. So when I click what can this user see for him, I see he's only got access to a single folder and a set of 8 images there. 6 images and 2 wiki pages. By the way, when you're dealing with the people in your team or dealing with your client, you actually have means of communication as well. So if I come over here to a separate browser window, I can log in as Conrad Hilton. And Conrad can come in and see what's going on. Maybe he wants to go ahead and look at the project summary for Hilton Launch, or maybe he wants to look at review brainstorming, which he's got due coming up. And you can say, well, Conrad, I need your input. Okay, let me go check out that brainstorming page and look around and see what I should do. And maybe I've got questions, at which point I can reach out to Don Draper via chat. Or alternately, Don Draper can do the same thing. Both of us have the ability to reach out to each other and say, hey, can you help me out? What's going on? And if I trigger a instant messaging window, it allows me to talk back and forth quite easily. Good morning. And in fact, I can do other things. Can you join me on the brainstorming page? I have questions. And in fact, I can insert a link to the page I'm on. Whoops. That was not part of the demo. I'll go back to that second. And Don Draper can say, okay, let's see what he's doing. And we can look at the same page, and it's Don Draper or Conrad Hilton. I can even convert this from a chat into a conference call. So using voice over IP, we'll actually dial your respective telephone numbers until you pick up and give you an instant conference call that you can then expand to include other members of the team as you're in progress. Finally, if you take a look here, just finishing off the various elements, there is an activity stream, so you can see all the things that have been going on. And in fact, for clients, you can even track what they've been viewing. So I can know that he's been looking at brainstorming, and I know that he's been looking at project summary. And so this gives me some idea of his level of engagement. Really a big deal for some of our customers who say, gosh, for the first time when a client says, oh yeah, I looked at that, I can actually go in and see, hey, did he look at that? It's a pretty powerful thing. These workspaces are highly customizable. So if we look at settings, which is something that's only available to administrators, you can do a lot of things. You can adjust the message that Conrad Hilton's going to see when he logs in. You can set up or change a logo. You can set the parameters. You can see here's where the information on the front page comes from. It allows us to filter on those items. You can export a zip file so that if you want to hand this off to someone, a complete set of information, including potentially even all the old revisions of pages and files, you can do so. You can customize the tabs. So if you want to change how these are labeled, if you don't want to say overview, if you want to say something in a foreign language like casa, you can do so. You can even put Chinese in if you want. I don't have Chinese on my computer, but if I go to a Chinese website and I cut and paste the Chinese, it'll definitely show up. because we are what's called UTF-8 compliant. And that means that while our documentation isn't in Mandarin Chinese, you can absolutely use Mandarin Chinese or any other script in our system. Customization lets you go ahead and choose a bunch of different stuff. We talked about the login message for Conrad Hilton. You can decide what kind of information to show, what elements of the user interface to put in place. We have something called email to workspace that reflects the reality that email is sort of the center of what most of us do. So if you're receiving new information via email, rather than saving it to your laptop or computer and then uploading it into PBworks, you can just turn around and forward it directly to a special email address, and it'll get the information in. So if I take a look at that email archive here on this workspace, if I look at an email, I can see the email gets translated into a wiki page, and in addition, images that are attached to that email get transferred in as well. So it could be a very powerful mechanism for getting information into the system. Finishing off the settings, the last thing I should mention is we do have a very extensive developer interface. What this developer interface does is it allows people who are programmers to basically invoke our system using programming instead of using a keyboard and a mouse. Pretty much all the features of our system are exposed via what's called API, or Application Programmatic Interface. That's the language that computers can use to get a system to do something. And if you have programmers, you can pretty much do just about anything. The limitation is really just what you have in your imagination. And we've had people build some pretty considerable additions to PBworks just using that developer platform. So that is a quick overview both of the product itself as well as the use case of using it with a customer. Hopefully that gave you some ideas of how that works. What I'm going to do now is pause just for a couple of minutes to check your questions, because it looks like there have been a number that have come in. I'm going to answer those questions, then I will circle back around and continue the presentation. So, question from Amy, are there ways to send private comments? So there is. It's not exactly like a comment. It won't stay attached to the page. But if I were to share this with someone, like let's say I were to share this with Roger Sterling, let's say it was a private comment, I might say, this, something sensitive, this sucks. You can do better. Now what's interesting about this share is what's happened is an email has gone out from our system to Roger. It's not searchable. Nobody but I and Roger can see it because we just are seeing. We're just sharing the information around. But what it will say is that I shared the project summary. So the email is private. The comment or sharing is private. But we do record that a sharing occurred. So next question, also from Amy. If I am understanding correctly, the files inherit the folder or subfolder permissions. However, certain files within folders can have extended permissions. Can I lock down files to less access than the folder level permissions? Absolutely. So the best way to think about it is that our system is essentially most specific security setting wins. So you can make your individual file or page level security more or less secure than whatever the higher level security is. So we just look down and say, we walk down the aisle. First there's the default security. Then we say, are you part of a folder that has custom security? No? All right, default security. Yes? Okay. What is that folder security? All right, now let's take a look at the individual page or file. Do you have custom security on this file or page? No? Okay, you get the folder. Yes? All right, whatever you specify, whether that be more or less secure. So it's an override where most specific setting wins. Next question from Amy, can tasks be updated or created by email into the system? That is an excellent question. Not right now. I do think it would be great if we could, in fact, respond to tasks, because you'll notice one of the things that happens is people will, you'll get a notification email when a task is created. It would be great to be able to reply to it and say, okay, I'm on it, or something along those lines. We haven't done that yet, but that's definitely a good idea. Will you please show us creating a new task? Not a problem. So let's say I want to create a new task. I'm sure there's some things that need to be done. I am looking here. I'm like, wait, let's show tasks assigned to anyone. So we can see where perhaps there should be some information added. So let's see. Present final deliverables. All right. So Roger Sterling, present final deliverables, report back, meet Conrad, launch campaign. Let's go ahead and create a new task for Don Draper. And that Don Draper thing is going to be lead presentation dress rehearsal. Now you'll notice, because I clicked it within this present final deliverables milestone, it's already assigned to that milestone. I don't have to assign it to me, Don Draper. I can assign it to anyone else at this point in time, but we do know that, in general, a lot of people will assign tasks to themselves. I could assign a specific due date to it, or if I leave it alone, it will just use the milestone state. So it will inherit the date of the milestone, and that's what I'm going to do. We'll go ahead and save and close. You can see here is the lead presentation dress rehearsal. Let me say, I'm working on securing space now. And that's going to provide an update and make sure everyone's aware of it. So it's really pretty straightforward. One of the things that we do have is, in fact, we allow you to, as you're creating a task, you'll notice you can actually save and add another, so you can create multiple tasks at once. And at the end of it, and only then do you hit save, and all the tasks are created at once. So relatively simple to create a task, and you can absolutely edit a task. So if we take a look at a task like lead presentation dress rehearsal, if I want to shift it to a different milestone, I just come in and shift it to a different milestone and hit save. In this case, I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to monkey around too much. Okay, further question. Can tasks be assigned to multiple team members? So you cannot currently assign a task to multiple team members. The idea of a task is to preserve a certain unity, which is who does what by when. One of the things that we are thinking about doing is making it possible to clone a task. So you can clone a task and have two different tasks assigned to two different people. You do want to have these two different tasks because you want both of them to be able to say when they're done. It's kind of confusing if you have a task assigned to two people, one says it's done and the other says it isn't. But we don't have that cloning yet, but that's definitely something we have in mind for the future. So excellent question there as well. All right. Amy says, thank you for the answers. You're welcome. I'm glad I can answer them. All right, so let's then talk about some of the other use cases and how this ultimately rolls up. So one of the things that I always like to point out is that very few of us are lucky enough to be working on a single project at a time. In fact, we usually have multiple things going on at any given time. So here, as you can see, is my personalized dashboard. Don Draper, I get a dashboard that shows me what I'm working on across all my projects. Now, most of my work is on the Hilton launch, but some of it's on other things like doing stuff with Pinterest or following up with JetBlue or working on a proposal for Hilton in Dubai and so on and so forth. So this personalized dashboard means that I always know, hey, what do I need to work on? That's not where the personalization ends either. I also have the ability to personalize and look at things like my starred items. Starred items are items that I've bookmarked as being important. This has two important results. The first is that it shows up on this list of starred items, so it's easy to get to them. So for example, if I want to get to a file, what's this? Oh, it's the photograph of the hotel. And you'll notice it's starred. If I unstar it, it's pretty easy to do. And ultimately, it's all about the stars. Now, the other thing about the starring is you can actually navigate to the starring not just from that dashboard, but on any page. This little star down in the corner lets you get to the stuff that's relevant to you. This little checkbox down in the corner lets you go ahead and find all the different projects and stuff that you're working on. Now, getting back to the dashboard, there's a few other things. Recent activity is now an activity stream that covers the entire system, not just the individual workspace. So now you can see what's going on across your entire company. And that can include things like status updates, where a la Twitter, people are going to be able to post their thoughts, and other people will come in and post their thoughts and provide a sort of really rapid, informal collaboration. Now, in terms of some of the different use cases, I mentioned some of them. So obviously the customer-facing use case is probably one of the important ones, and that's where these client projects come in. But I also mentioned the intranet use case. Now, with the intranet use case, you can see things like, hey, I can set up an intranet much like I set up a customer workspace. And this intranet, unlike a traditional intranet, is now going to be something where I have the ability to really make it accessible to everyone, all the people in the organization. They can create pages, they can edit content, they can make this a living document so it's not just up to HR to keep it updated. But because we have differential security, HR can still go ahead and say, okay, let's take the specific HR materials, the forms, etc., and keep them locked up so that you can download them or view them, but not actually modify them or change them. There are also, you can set up folders for different practice areas, so you can have information and basically take advantage of all the same features and use them for intranet purposes instead. What's nice about the intranet is you have the ability to set up intranets for multiple offices or multiple groups. You can set one up for just about any team. And of course, you can end up using this in other ways. So for example, there may be other internal information that's useful to you. What if you want to set up a company picnic? Well, you can use the same kinds of techniques that we saw before. Here I've got a big picture of our venue. I've got some wiki pages where we've laid out the games and sports that we want to play, even with an embedded YouTube video, no less. People can come in and make edits and changes to what they want to play with. I don't even know what ladder golf is. Good Lord, I should look that up. And overall, once they want to figure out how to get the picnic done, you can have the list of planning items, the catering, the cotton candy machines, the puppeteer, the soccer balls and goals. Just glad there's no clowns. I don't really like clowns. No offense to any clowns out there. But you have the same ability to use this technology to really manage an internal project. And when you're done with that project, you can even use it to share relevant things like the photos. And so if you want, you can go ahead and click on the individual photos and see the people who are involved. And boy, don't those folks look happy after their company picnic. A few other things to note. We talked about knowledge bases. So you can have a knowledge base for a practice area, for example. We take a look at branding. You can see that the branding practice area can have information on various stuff. There might be, for example, active client brands, and so we can see what kind of brands our clients are providing. You can take a look at, hey, we've got a branding forum. Maybe we're having discussions about stuff. What if we're having a discussion about Apple and its products and Steve Jobs and how we've been able to do it, and people can go back and forth in a conversation. We can take a look at and have knowledge like a brand knowledge bank. Here are all of Diageo's brands, and here's what people are saying about them on Twitter. Isn't it good to know, hey, what do people do about Tanqueray, Jose Cuervo, Captain Morgan, so on and so forth. By the way, this little Twitter plugin is not created by Twitter. It's something we've created to make it easier for you, just because Twitter has become so important to folks. Finally, what I'll mention is, we have the ability to ultimately have within the system just about anything you care about. So you mentioned practice areas before. Here you can see a list of the practice areas. We mentioned internal information. There could even be things like executive profiles. So I could see, hey, who are the various folks that are involved? Now, at this higher level, this is what we call a network. We've explored the dashboard. The workspaces gives you a top-down view of the various elements within your system. So you can see all the folders and subfolders, and I can go into client projects. And if I want, I can filter and say, hey, show me just my automotive stuff. Okay, it looks like I don't have automotive. Show me just my food and beverage stuff. Okay, I got Nestle, Coors, Dole Foods. Let me dive into Nestle. Okay, I got a bunch of Nestle things. Show me what we're working on New York. Working on New York for Nestle. It's Carnation and Lean Cuisine. Everyone is the complete roster of people that can include clients and partners and other folks who are coming in from the outside. And if I come on in, I can take a look and see all these different things. If I look at an individual partner like Don Draper, I can see a biography. I can see information about him, contact info, which groups he belongs to. You belong to the digital task force? Really? Who's on the digital task force? Click on it, and I can see who's on the digital task force. I can say, well, who's on the digital task force from New York? All right, it's these three. What about business development? Who's in the New York? Who's in business development in New York? So you have the ability to have folders. You have the ability to have user groups, and you have the ability to filter on the actual characteristics within the user profile. That user profile, by the way, is customizable. You can customize it. It's kind of like going in and customizing LinkedIn by adding any fields you like, locking any fields in case HR doesn't want people calling themselves Grand Vizier or what have you, and ultimately being able to add as much or as little as you want. We also have the basic information, things like the ability to decide whether or not your users can create their own workspaces, whether or not they can create their own user groups. There's a logo, much like at the workspace level. Themes allow you to change the appearance. You can do the color scheme however you like. So right now it's this theme. Maybe I want to change it to something else instead. If I change it to green, all of a sudden the entire theme and user interface has changed. Let me go ahead and change it back. Yeah, that's a little more comfortable. You have the ability to bring people in a variety of ways. You can allow people from your email domain to just sign up. You can do login or single sign-on using like an LDAP or Active Directory system. You can whitelist or blacklist IPs. We offer a lot of centralized control for the IT departments of the world. We have a couple of other things that are pretty useful along the way. You can customize the content CSS. So you can change what kind of fonts we're using, what kind of colors we're using. You can customize these network tabs, much like we customize the workspace tabs. You can insert Google Analytics to be able to track what kind of usage is going on. You can define those properties that we saw earlier in terms of being able to filter on them and classify them. And finally, we have the ability to maintain an offsite backup with Amazon S3. Now, we are pretty good about maintaining uptime. We most months are able to well exceed our commitment of 99.9% uptime, and we only every 2 or 3 years have a planned downtime, so we're pretty much available all the time. But if you have any doubts whatsoever, you can set up your own Amazon account, and we will actually back up all the data to Amazon each night, so that you are always equipped with a complete set of your data. So that gives you an overview of some of those different use cases and how you use it at the network level. Let me now return back to questions and answers and see what I can do to answer further questions. Joe asks, is there a limit to the amount of accounts you can have? So excellent question, Joe. So there is a limit on the free product, but not in the paid product. So if you go to pbworks.com, and perhaps you already have, you can actually sign up for a free version of PBworks. You just click that and say, I'm a general business user, I want to sign up for the free version of PBworks. We also have other things you can click on. If you're specific to an agency or a law firm, we have a special product, and you should probably talk with one of our sales reps. If you're education, we have different products for you as well. But for your general business user, you can just come in here and sign up for our free account. The free account is limited to 20 users. Obviously, we do want to make money. We are in the business of being a profitable company. So eventually, when you grow bigger, we want you to pay. But if you just have 20 users, that's absolutely fine. Once you pay, you get as many users as you pay for. So you can have 20 users, you can have 100 users. We have some people who have 10,000 users. Can the Twitter plugin be activated on the projects pages? That's from Amy. That is an excellent question, Amy. So one of the things you're probably thinking of is if I look inside a client project, like we were looking at our Hilton project, can I go ahead and add the Twitter plugin to the project page? So if I'm looking at this brainstorming page, can I add the Twitter plugin here? Sadly, I can't. All these updates are just text and URL, but that is something that I think would be interesting. You can also add a link to the page on which the Twitter plugin sits, so at least people can go there and see it. I do think that the long-term future is that this becomes a little bit more like Facebook, where if you add a link, we actually have a preview, and you can view it just here without having to go through to the next page, or if it's a video or what have you, it's displayed here, but that hasn't been done yet. But excellent question. Are there other questions I can answer for you? I know I promised we'd try to be done by 45 past the hour. We're a little over that, But again, I am more than willing to stay a little extra time and answer your questions. Again, if in fact you like what you see, if you haven't signed up for a free account yet, go ahead, click on Get Started, and you can sign up for a free account. If you want to talk to one of us or talk to a sales representative, we're certainly always happy to do that. Go ahead and hit Contact Us, and you can email us or get in touch with us. And our goal is just, let's build a great product that you're going to be able to use within your organization. Our free product makes it easy for you to try it out. And then once you've really developed a sense of what it can do for you, contact us. We'd love to have you as a customer. So with that, unless there are any other further questions, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'm only 5 minutes late. I apologize for that, but I really do thank you guys for sticking around and spending the time with me today.